HOA called 911 while I moved my granddaughter's belongings into our lake cabin. I banned the HOA forever. Have you ever had someone call the cops on your granddaughter just for bringing a backpack into her own family cabin? Because that's how this mess started, right on the edge of the lake, in front of the pine trees my wife planted by hand, with a teenage girl barely old enough to drive and a woman who looked like she'd never known peace without control. Her name? Karen Dillard, president of the Lake Cedar Bluffs, HOA, 63 years old, 5'1", 250 pounds of righteous fury stuffed into a pastel green polo shirt, armed with a clipboard, a golf cart with a megaphone duct taped to it, and the world's most weaponized version of concern. It was a quiet Thursday. My granddaughter, Ellie, had just turned 17 and was finally going to stay with me for the summer, something we'd planned since she was a toddler. Her mom, my daughter, was taking a teaching job overseas, and our lake cabin was meant to be Ellie's safe place, her sanctuary. We were unpacking her bags when the screeching started. "Excuse me, excuse me, stop right there." Karen stormed up the gravel like a barge on fire, red-faced and breathing like she'd just climbed Everest. "That girl is not authorized to reside here," she barked, stabbing her finger at Ellie. "I didn't approve this. The HOA didn't approve this." I stood up from the tailgate. "Karen, this is my cabin, my family. You don't get to approve anything here." She snarled. "This property is within the Cedar Bluff jurisdiction. All long-term guests must be declared and approved. I've filed violations against you before, Harris. This is your last warning." I chuckled quietly, but that only made her angrier. "You think this is a joke? I'm calling the sheriff. Right now." And she did, right in front of us. She spun around, phone already to her ear. "Yes, 911. I need to report a suspicious young person unloading items into a restricted-use dwelling. No adult permission confirmed. Possible squatter situation." "Squatter." She said squatter. Ellie froze. She wasn't used to this kind of conflict, but I'd lived through Karen's antics for years. She once tried to fine me for unlicensed use of decorative firewood. Another time she claimed my canoe rack violated aesthetic line-of-sight harmony. But this was war. I patted Ellie's shoulder, told her breathe, then walked calmly inside the cabin to grab a folder I'd been keeping for just this moment. 20 minutes later, the sheriff's cruiser pulled up. 2 deputies stepping out slow, confused, hands resting on their belts. Karen rushed to them like she'd spotted salvation. "There," she pointed. "The girl. I want her questioned. And this man," she added, "has been violating HOA codes for years. This whole area is under community compliance management." Deputy Rivera raised an eyebrow. "Sir, do you have any identification or documents showing ownership?" I smiled and handed him the file. Inside was the original deed from 1971, with my grandfather's name and mine listed as co-trustees. Alongside it, I included a federal land use exemption letter tied to our military veteran family trust, a certified ruling from the 2021 county court establishing our parcel as exempt from HOA inclusion due to non-consent at the time of incorporation, and lastly, the public revocation of temporary access, which I had filed 2 weeks ago, effective immediately. Karen's expression cracked. "What is this?" she hissed, grabbing at the papers. Deputy Rivera held her back. "Ma'am, I need you to step away. This is a legal document, and it says here this property is not part of the HOA. In fact, it says it's permanently protected under an intergenerational family trust." Karen blinked. "That can't be right. What his land was mapped under." "No, Karen," I cut in, stepping forward. "You mapped it. You drew your own fake borders and harassed us for years. You mailed us fake fines, trespassed twice, and now you're calling the cops on my granddaughter like she's some criminal." Karen turned to the deputies, voice trembling now. "Two was trying to protect the neighborhood. This is a clear abuse of—" Rivera held up a hand. "Actually, what's clear is that you just called 911 to report a teenage girl for moving into her grandfather's home. That's not protection. That's false reporting." Karen's face drained of color. "And that was twist number 1. The sheriff already had a recorded complaint from another neighbor, who had reported Karen last month for threatening to confiscate patio furniture from a veteran's widow. But twist number two? Oh, that was the best part. I pulled out a second envelope and handed it to the deputy. This is a signed petition from every exempt landowner surrounding this lake. As of this morning, we've submitted our formal vote to the County Development Board to fully revoke the HOA's access road easement across our properties. Karen's knees buckled. You can't do that. We just did, I said, pointing toward the access gate. That road? That leads into your neighborhood? You've been using it under temporary goodwill. That goodwill ends today. Karen stared at the gate like it had just turned into a wall. Her lips moved, but no words came out. The deputies stepped aside as she stumbled toward the access, rode her precious shortcut only to find a fresh steel chain across it, locked tight with a posted sign that read, Private right-of way revoked, HOA traffic prohibited. It had the county seal. The ink was still drying. She spun around, face blotchy, fists clenched. You can't do this. There are families who depend on that road. I stepped forward, calm, measured, and they'll get access again once you and your HOA board vacate your claims, cease all harassment, and issue formal apologies to every exempt property owner you targeted. Deputy Rivera crossed his arms. Until then, you'll need to reroute all HOA traffic through the main subdivision entrance. Legally, that entrance? A 5-mile detour on an unpaved road filled with washouts. Karen's mouth opened like she was going to scream, but no sound came. She backed away, trembling, sweat soaking through her HOA polo. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked powerless. The next week, Karen resigned in disgrace. The resignation letter wasn't even signed in ink. It was a printed email from her personal Gmail, riddled with misspelled words and a half-hearted line about personal reflection. But it wasn't over for the HOA. See, once our easement was revoked, 7 other exempt properties followed suit. Without access to the lake, their lakefront HOA marketing collapsed. Home values in the premium tier of Cedar Bluffs dropped 18% in a month. The board panicked. They tried to sue me for obstruction of community development, but the court dismissed it in 10 minutes flat. Instead, I countersued for emotional distress, fraudulent enforcement, and illegal surveillance because Karen, it turns out, had installed a private motion-activated camera on a tree overlooking my dock. The footage was reviewed. The device was removed. The judge fined the HOA $55,000 in damages, plus a public letter of apology read aloud at the next board meeting. Ellie? She stayed the whole summer. We fished. We laughed. We built a new swing near the dock and painted a mural on the boathouse wall that said, Our roots are deeper than your rules. Neighbors' former HOA members started dropping by with stories. They'd been too afraid to speak before. One elderly couple even cried when they handed me a fruit pie and said, Thank you for ending her. Karen moved out by fall. Her house was foreclosed after legal fees drained her savings. No one in Cedar Bluffs mentions her name anymore, just a whisper now, like an old mosquito bite. And the HOA, disbanded, voted out 324, burned to the ground by the very residents it tried to control. That cabin by the lake? It's peaceful again, not because we kicked someone out, but because we stood up and stayed in. So let me ask you, was Karen really protecting the community? Or was she just terrified of a world she couldn't control? The end.